First off, I'd like to thank the National Spiritual Alliance for having me give this inspirational message. Good morning. Today's talk on God was written in 1854 by George Linton from his book titled The Healing of the Nations. I will start with a story he calls The Journey of Life. Afterwards, I will read from selected excerpts from chapter 1. A certain man arose early in the morning to journey up the mountain. He shook off the slumbers of the night and with only a strong staff commenced his journey. All around him was dark and gloomy. The dawn was still afar off. Yet in faith he stumbled on in the darkness, knowing that day must at length appear. He was all alone. The slumberers had refused to be awakened, and he went along in what he felt to be a pathway beneath him. Often did he pause and feel around him to be certain that he was right. At last, when he began to weary and wonder when light was coming, he chanced to cast his eyes above him, and behold, the top of the mountain already shone with the glorious rays of the rising sun. His path now became by the reflection distinctly visible. Yet in looking in the direction whence he came, all seemed darker than before, and he was thankful that so much time had been gained. As the traveler journeyed on, the light came down the mountainside to meet him, and when it shone full upon him, his spirit bounded, and strength increased tenfold. He paused at a pure mountain spring, and refreshed himself with a sparkling, joyous draught, and onward and upward bent his way. Ever and anon he paused and turned toward the valley. Yet it was long, very long, before he could distinguish any of the sluggards moving up toward his elevated position. He saw them in the valley eating rich fruits, unmindful the day was waning. Some singing and dancing, other wrangling about trifles, and in various ways hindering themselves from their journey. Few, very few, were pushing on right along the narrow path with their eyes steadfastly gazing toward the top. He went on up higher and higher, and before long, with the same eyes with which he could not at the start see one pace ahead, he could now see far and wide over the wide extended plains, and his spirit breathed thankfulness at every step. At the noon he rested in the shade on the bank of a little rivulet bounding down the mountain toward its home, and again commenced his journey upward. As the evening approached, the shadows filled the vale, yet the warm rays of the setting sun carried his thoughts on their own golden wings to a bright and happy home, whence all darkness was removed. The top is gained, and away down the mountain settles the black cloud of night, enveloping all below him in its folds. Where he sits, all is serene and calm. The last ray of the departing sun closes his eyes, and while a gentle zephyr fans him, sleep, heaven's love messenger, carries his happy spirit home to the regions of eternal day. Thus is the journey called life. Existence hath a cause. All causes are but one cause, which is God. He is the center whence all power cometh. Great and simple, good and holy art thou, O great first cause. Man is in his image. Man is his own Savior, his own Redeemer. Man hath the light and shadow placed before him. He hath the essence within him. He must choose his way between them. The light is always greatest, will always overcome darkness. The light within all things is the focal point of their intelligence, in affinity with the light of God's intelligence, and by that guided. So long as earth remaineth in man, he must of necessity be impure. He can, through the agency of his own spirit's light, attract unto himself the intelligence of the grand fountain which will purify, refine, and elevate him toward perfection. Yet if he chooses, the opposite lieth before him, and he can wander about the shadows, guided by a dim taper, stumbling and erring at every step. Man, being in God's image, is necessarily one independent, eternal being. Being the Son of God is capable of attaining perfection in the ages which comprise eternity. Why did God create? God is perfection, and unto man incomprehensible and mysterious. Whence came man? From God. Man's cause is more intelligent than himself, for a whole is greater than its parts. Whence comes his life, light, and love, save from the fountain of divine love and purity. Man acteth like God when following his highest and purest promptings. And what are these promptings? They are the rays of God's own pure intelligence. All things have a share in man, and thus he is in God's image. He is happiest when good, and thus as he approaches deity, does he approach perfect happiness. God, being good, does not destroy his own works, and man can communicate with God while in the body. Principles and their essences emanating from God are indestructible. Therefore, man can, while in affinity with God, draw toward him and reap his reward, divine intelligence. God doeth not destroy, because a necessity for destroying proveth imperfection in creating. All things being parts of God must blend in unison. God's love cementeth all unto one another and into him. Discord cannot produce harmony. All things below man and above him tend to furnish his animal nature and his spiritual being with perfect happiness. All creation join in a happy hymn of praise unto its great first cause, its kind and indulgent creator. God hath not created unhappiness, and if a man be unhappy, his own error must carry the burden. He that hath light yet preferreth darkness stumble of himself, and cannot blame the light he will not use. All are responsible for themselves only, and when weighed before the throne of mercy, only their own weights will be used. Let no man weigh another's load, for he assumeth God's power. Let each and every one search for God within his own light, and therein doeth the Father search for him. Sufficient unto each is the light within. All things blend and mingle in harmony, and all unite in the glorifying of the Creator. From the center doeth come all. God cometh unto each one as an overflowing of their own powers or gifts. In God's light, all things are expanded and purified, and thus can elevate man himself and increase his happiness by earnestly striving after that pure intelligence which removeth all unhappiness from before the face of God. Unto the one who ascends high toward God cometh the light divine, to guide him on his way. If thou wouldest approach God, be godlike. God cometh to thee in the still small voice that is always harmonious and loving. For in God's love, the more thou giveth, the richer thou art. How small the labor and how great the reward when a short life is given to God ensures a life of perfect happiness unto all eternity. Labor only for the glory of God, and he will feed thee of his own food, pay thee of his own pay, and give thee of his own rest when thy task is finished. Thou must of necessity imitate God to be happy, for God hath not created a being equal unto himself, and there being but one fountain of purity, there must thy spirit drink to be happy. Let each and every one labor as they are called. Thus will the greatest possible results be attained. God doeth not labor in vain. Is not that which fulfills its destiny most acceptable? Doeth it not give God most glory? Thou knowest thou art limited, and therefore cannot comprehend that which is unlimited. Yet be not idle, strive to fulfill thy own measure, and thou wilt find there are all the happiness thou canst comprehend. No man can comprehend that which is above his powers, yet all can understand that which is below them. Man's spirit longeth continually after that which is beyond and above its present attainment. God is illimitable, indestructible, incomprehensible, save to himself. In God lieth all knowledge and his cause. In God lieth perfection. God is the beginning and the cause of beginning. God is love and the cause of love in all his creations. Space is but a flood of light and love. Man hath lost sight of the great and still simple truths which in the numberless bodies floating in space reveal. Whence came these bodies? Of what are they the result? The harmony of their perfect action proves them to be the fruit of love, and their existence proveth that there was supreme intelligence or light manifested in their formation. Hence are they from the hand of Creator, the cause of everything. God doeth not create itself, neither doeth light without a cause exist. These with their fruits all combine and center in the great and first cause, the I am, essence of all, ruler over all, the supreme ever-living God, the great one center and circumference, beginning and ending unto all mysterious, yet lovely, grand, yet simple in all his ways. Pure beyond conception is the love which floweth from this sweet fountain, and blessed are they that quench thirst thereat. O man, the stream runneth through thee, and giveth joy celestial in its passage. Turn to it and drink freely, for blessings unnumbered will it give. Thou canst ascend unto the mountain even while yet on earth, for God's love and his light and his truth extend everywhere. Thou hast gone out into the harvest to labor. All thy glory dependeth upon how many sheaves thou bringest home with thee in the end of the day. If thou doest idle away thy time, when night cometh, and thou art required to give account of thy day's labor, behold, thou art empty, and so will be thy reward. Think not that thou canst be idle and still gain a reward. It cannot be done. God labored to create thee. In thy existence thou hast need of labor. Thou canst not exist without it. For God, the cause of all existence, is active, and labor to bring forth from chaos his own creation. And that which his laws regulate must of necessity be in harmony with him. Thy Father in heaven worketh only for good. Thy field of action is man. Let all of thy be in harmony with those of thy Father, and he will assist thee always. Thou wilt at all times have sufficient strength and wisdom given to overcome and make plain the difficult duties, and wherever thou goest and whatever thou doest will be in God's name, and give him all glory. The flesh has encroached upon the spirit. Darkness has entered the path where light were wont to guide. Hatred, envy, and unkindness have almost choked out the fragrant flowers of love, and error and superstition and bigotry have assumed the garb of truth. Light removeth darkness, and therefore light one another. Love removeth all unkindness, therefore love one another. Truth removeth error, superstition, and bigoted feelings. Practice the truth. This is loving thy father supremely, and thy brother as thyself. This giveth thee sheaves in abundance, whose fruit angels will enjoy when thou takest them home. And God will sound in thy ear the greatest of all reward. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou did labor in darkness, in light shall see thy reward. Thou did labor in unkindness, and in love behold thy joy given. Thou didst war with error, and behold, here in my presence the perfection of the truth which sustained thee in thy numberless trials. Here is God's presence, well earned by a good and faithful life, enjoyed unto all eternity. Oh, how easy the labor and how great the reward. Let thy erring brother rave and scoff and spit upon thee. Thou must forgive and love him. With God his account will be settled. With himself is the witness that shall condemn him. He that fulfills his own destiny is not condemned, while he that does not writes his own condemnation. Imitate God thy Father, and be good and loving to all. Preserve thy own independence of thought and action, monuments unto God's glory, for they are in the representatives of his pure spirit upon earth. Go fearlessly unto thy duty, and thus by example show thy brother his pathway unto his Father's house. God's love continually loveth, is not changeful, fitful thing, which man in his folly would represent, but the one grand eternal principle by which all things from the atom unto deity are bound together in unison. It is as the eye of deity which pierceth every household, uncovering the deeds of the godly and the ungodlike. O man, why seek to smother thy light and thus hide thyself in thy own darkness from the eye of thy kind, loving Father? Light, love, and truth manifest God in all their actions, and man must find his truth within their silent depths or go hungering away. The mysteries of creation lie hidden in the depths of these pure essences, simple and eternally active. Man, if thou wouldest be wise, heed well the light and love thy Creator supremely, thy brother man as thyself. The light will reveal unto thee the simplicity of God's truth. Beware of darkness and the dark in spirit. Light removeth it without and within. All erroneous ways are but avenues leading to the opposite of God, the opposite of goodness, the opposite of his divine rays manifested in his love and his light. That God is the great I am. O ye who wander darkling among the shades of night, you cannot, without light, understand your own darkness. Therefore is light greater than darkness, for the revealer is greater than the revealed. Truth not understood do no man good. Within the spirit of God's children is his own breath breathed, giving them the knowledge of truth and error, which will ask in every action, art thou right? And if heeded, will always show the direct pathway unto deity. This concludes chapter 1 of the Book of Healing of the Nations by Charles Linton, 1855. Thank you.